Okay, so you're very welcome to our discovery session at the OLC conference. We're delighted to be sharing with you our story all the way from Ireland, here in the west of Ireland, from GMIT. My name is Carina Ginty, and I manage the Teaching and Learning office here in GMIT, and I'm the project lead of DigitalEd.ie. And my colleague, Annette, would like to introduce herself.
Yes, hi, my name is Annette Cosgrove. I'm a lecturer in computing at GMIT, and I'm also a lecturer in technology enhanced learning, and I'm part of the Digital Ed team working with Carina on this project. So we're delighted to share with you our experiences about our Digital Champion program. So I'll hand it over to Carina and I'll fill you in later on.
Yeah, so back and forth we'll be chatting during this discovery session, and we look forward to getting feedback also through the communication channels they're setting up on the OLC during the conference time. So this session is going to explore the creation of a digital academic champion team and the impact this is having on teaching, practice and student engagement. And this is all supported by the Digital Ed platform that has been developed as a higher education project in Ireland for GMIT, IT Sligo and Letterkenny IT, and we'll share some insights along the way. Okay, so to get started, just to give a bit of context where we are, you'll see we're here in the west of Ireland, and GMIT is the maroon red buttons there on the left of the map of Ireland. We would have 5 campuses here in the west of Ireland. Then our partners are in IT Sligo, you'll see the blue button, and also you'll see the mustardy yellow button is Letterkenny. So collectively, we are becoming this large technological university for the west and northwest of Ireland. And this project, iNote and Digital Ed, has formed part of lots of innovations and initiatives that we're working on collaboratively. So for GMIT, we're right in the heart of Galway in the west of Ireland, chatting to you today. Some screenshots of one of our campuses there, you'll see top right, a famous area, the Long Walk in Galway, a beautiful place. And another icon of Galway is Blackrock, a popular swimming spot. So again, just noting, we have 5 campuses, we'd have over 100 programs that go from undergraduate to postgraduate level in the institute. And we would have up to 8,000 students. Now, collectively across the CUA, we will be looking at about 22,000 students when we become a new TU, which will be in 2022. So we're looking forward to that, the next stage. Okay, so to give a bit of context further on the iKnow project and where Digital Ed and Digital Champions came from, is it all comes from a higher education innovation fund that commenced back in 2019, and it'll run right through to 2022. And we're working very hard now on embedding the initiatives and the resources and the programs that we've developed that we'll share with you during this talk, and ensuring that they'll go beyond 2022. We were fortunate that our whole project lined up very much to the response to COVID and the managing teaching and learning during the pandemic. So we were fortunate we could help so many colleagues in GMIT and across the CUA. There's various work packages in iNote. There is a student services model in development as well, which IT Sligo lead. GMIT are leading the Digital Ed, digital teaching and learning aspect of building digital capabilities, which is work package 2. Another piece is around policy that Letterkenny has led. And then collectively, we're all working on developing online learning programs and working on the whole evaluation and dissemination of that project right into over the next year. So moving on, this will give you a little insight or a look at what does our Digital Ed platform look like, and it's open to everybody. Anyone can access in the world. We welcome you to pop in to DigitalEd.ie, explore what it's got to offer. There's lots of different learning pathways, stories, videos. There's a discovery tool. The community aspect is there. Now, just to add to it, Annette and I were very fortunate that we spent a bit of time with SUNY in the States, and we'd like to give a special call out there to Meg Benke, Professor Meg Benke in SUNY, and Alexandra Pickett, who were part of our, I suppose, our discovery phase when we were examining how to build this DigitalEd platform and what components did we need to ensure that it was an effective digital teaching and learning knowledge platform. So we undertook some field trips to SUNY, and certainly they've been part of our collaboration ever since then, of working together and getting feedback from each other. So I'd like to make sure we're thanking Meg and Alexandra Pickett for their input. So just moving on, something clicking there in front of me, one sec. Just moving on to, and I won't go into all these details, but it's nice to share the story of the journey and where we started. And we began actually back in 2019 with an audit. So we examined across the 8 campuses our capabilities. And that's, I suppose, where the idea of Digital Champions came from. We realized that we needed to create a network that would connect these dispersed campuses across the region together, and collectively we could build this community of practice. So yes, as I mentioned, we hooked up with SUNY to get some advice on that, and then our digital audit exercise was really crucial, and the collection of that data. And then we moved on and we did a national digital experience survey, which is known as Index. And we went on then to look at implementing a discovery tool, which we'll share with you in a moment on the platform. We also then looked at the opportunities around developing the community, and we looked at developing an education platform like through Microsoft Teams. And then Annette and I worked very closely on the development of this postgraduate award at level 9 for our educators so that they could get a formal qualification in digital teaching and learning. And we'll be sharing that with you in a moment, and how our champions engage with that training program in order to get the skills to be the very best within their department to demonstrate digital teaching and learning skills. And then we did quite a lot of work with the team on reviewing such a range of digital tools that are out there. And we began to categorize them and code them, and began to see which would work best for the 3 institutes. And we curated about 20 that we did a whole peer review process on, which we'll share in a moment as well. So other milestones over the platform got developed and launched on March 12th. And we actually, along with every other higher education institute in Ireland, and I think most private sector companies, closed the doors on March 13th, and everybody was sent home to work online, to teach online. So within 24 hours, our colleagues were in a crisis. And fortunately, we had a lot of the work done in what was needed to, I suppose, to manage a digital teaching environment. So we were able to respond very quickly with DigitalEd and a whole suite of resources through our Moodle environment at locally. So that was fantastic. And then again, with the team, we began to develop a webinar series. And, anything that we were doing physically before in a workshop setting was immediately converted overnight to an online setting. And it was fantastic. You see all the registrations that came through there, and really good engagement and peer learning among colleagues across the multidiscipline groups. And then we also got involved in some interesting student surveys during the year. We were very curious about what our students felt about online delivery, and that was really useful for us as we were developing our training resources to see was there any gaps. And we worked with a company called Opinion X in Ireland. They're a new startup company, and they're very focused on the student experience. And we were very fortunate to be part of their kind of pilot surveys that they did with universities in Ireland. So that was very useful. And then we went on to look at our TEL resources and how we would kind of blend them or work them in with the student services model that IT Sligo were working on. And then we started looking at a digital badge, and you'll see that in a moment, and the professional services badge. So lots and lots that have happened over the last couple of years that have brought us to the stage of building this champion network and the impact that's had. This is a really nice illustration that we commissioned. It's a lady called Maya Thomas. She's a graphic harvester. I think she's become very popular and very busy during the conferences that have gone online in the last couple of years. And she actually brings a story and kind of a cartoon illustration to what's happening with a talk, with a keynote, or with a story around a project. So we really like this. it kind of shares all the different steps and where we are today and where we're going with the whole project and the impact of the champion team. So just to show and demonstrate to you step one, which we'd like to call step one, which is all about the discovery phase. And our digital champions undertook this process as their step one when they were trying to figure out where they were in relation to their digital skills and where gaps, where there might be gaps, and what training programs that they needed to undertake with Annette and I and the team in order to be fully, I suppose, confident and fully equipped to deal with their department issues. So they undertake this tool. We teamed up with a company called GISC in the UK, and they have this discovery tool and an effective online teaching tool. And we give colleagues free access, direct access through our DigitalEd platform. And they do this. And what's lovely about it is you get this really nice kind of personal infographic back, which tells you about your 15 areas of digital capability. So for us, this was a brilliant starting point for our digital champions. And maybe Annette, you might say, do you want to say something about this part?
Yes, just from a viewpoint of from a step one, this was really good because what it did is framed our digital champions. It let us see where they sat on the whole digital space. So again, if you can see by the diagram there, it allows you to look at your creativity, your digital teaching, data literacy. So there's all these different areas. So this was a really good starting point. So some of our digital champions were experts. Some were very, they were just starting on the journey. So we found that this was a really good to get them to even self-reflect and think, what am I good at? What am I not good at? And again, areas that they wanted to grow in. Let's say for one, people may be good digitally, like myself, but they may not be that creative, So again, so you can be good at the IT and computing, but still not use it for your teaching practice. So we found this really, really useful for a step one for our champions. And then at the end, we asked everybody to do it again, and we asked them to compare it as an exercise. And it was a really good, and we're still using that now for any of our formal training programs. We're asking people to take the discovery tool to reflect on how you are now, and then when you finish your training, where you're sitting. So we find it very useful. So thanks, Carina.
Thanks, Annette. And you'll see some of the other kind of dashboard tools that are available to us when we want to explore capabilities, maybe at an institute level. We've been really happy to see how GMIT, for example, have grown, and our proficiency as a result of engaging with the digital ed training resources and tools and engaging with the digital champion team, that we've become quite capable and proficient in all of these categories. So that's reassuring that what we're doing seems to be working. And the interventions and training schemes that we've put in place are having an impact, along with the digital champion mentoring system that's in place. So let's just explore that a little bit further, the community, the digital community that's been developed and the impact. So when we started looking at the community, we realized that we needed to have a number of different, I suppose, options or interfaces for colleagues to collaborate. And one example was the setting up of a Microsoft Teams digital education forum where everyone became a member. Now, we also had a Microsoft Teams digital champion team, and that's been a fantastic network for the champions to collaborate and share. And also, for members of the wider community in the CUA to come in and share ideas. We also encouraged our champions to write blogs and articles and publish them within our DigitalEd platform. So that's been really powerful. It's had a huge impact. All of our champions as well undertook our learning pathways. So we have an academic digital champion badge pathway, and under this I Know project, and they all were required to do some essential learning in there. So that was effective. Also, the webinars and events, we had a mix of members from Digital Champions, from the Teaching and Learning Office team, and colleagues from across the CUA contributing to our webinars and events, which has been huge. So, and you'll see just the impact. This is an infographic. It was just the last infographic just before the summer where we recorded. There's a new one coming out now in the next month. But you'll see here that we've had quite really strong engagement. And that's just looking at the GMIT level. And the power of the promotion and the sharing of the champion team is having a big impact on engagement as well. So Annette, you're going to share a little bit more about champions, and I'll let you take over for a little bit now. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Carina. So I suppose just to frame it and to where my position is with the Digital Champions is initially I've been working on Carina with Carina on the team, and also when we chose the Digital Champions, they identified themselves, and they had completed some formal training programs with us in GMIT and in the CUA. So again, Carina mentioned, and again we'll come back to it, a formal training program, which was a 10-credit module, digital teaching and learning. So for our colleagues who wanted to know if our champions were, where did they get their expertise, it was wonderful that they had gone through a formal training program as well. So that gave them credibility. So I suppose just the way that it worked was, as Carina mentioned, back in May or April 2020, where everyone had to go home. Some of our lecturers had never taught online before. They had never delivered material online. So again, what the Digital Ed program eventually, I suppose straight away we launched it, and that was a huge number of resources available to the general public. What our Digital Champions did then, they worked within their departments, and that's where the expertise. So again, just to talk a little bit about the slide here, I'll just run through the slide that Carina just brought up here. So what they did was they brought expertise within their department. So we had sort of local expertise. So yes, there was webinars running and there was websites and there was a lot, but what really allowed us to, our students to achieve their learning outcomes really in the higher education sector was the whole colleagues helping colleagues, and that was really the Digital Champion program. That was the essence of it. So just to run through, first, it was an excellent source of guidance and advice for their colleagues within their discipline department. And how did they do this? So they shared exemplary teaching practice, they shared new technologies and new methods of assessing their students. And how they did that was through the community, through the blogs, so some were using new technologies, which I'll show a case in a few moments. And so they wrote blogs about it and they shared it with the community. So I may have been a learner and I wasn't that familiar with working with technology, and I may have been inspired or learned new tools from the Digital Champion. So again, just to mention, the colleagues were inspired to embrace and implement innovative approaches to their teaching. So again, instead of putting up recorded material, or what they did was they delivered live classes. They started using tools like Mentimeter because they saw them being used by their colleagues. They saw how effective they were. They saw that the students liked them. Students were even looking for, once one lecturer started using some technologies, then other lecturers, that wanted to try the same and try and give the student the best possible experience in the online environment. And all of this supported that. So the opportunity, again, just in the previous slides there, Carina, just the level 9, just I mentioned digital teaching and learning. So that was really what was for the Digital Champions themselves, what was in it for them. So again, they got a formal qualification. And again, I just want to share a Padlet that we used. So that's just the next screen.
Yep.
Where we asked the champions themselves, we said, what benefits did it bring to you yourself? So just to look at it from their viewpoint first, and then I want to show you some of the examples of the work, I suppose best practice that they shared with us as part of their assessment, and also that they shared with their colleagues. So again, just everybody can see we're using Padlet as an engagement tool. It's one of the tools, again, that the Digital Champions might have showcased and would have used for engagement. So this is, we've asked them to just share one of the sessions myself and Carina were running with them. So again, you can see we have testimonials from our colleagues. We have, I learned so much from being a Digital Champion, found it very rewarding to share their learning with colleagues. So the initiative from the CUA I Know project has provided me with great opportunities for collaboration and sharing of ideas and resources with other champions. So that's from one of our very good champions, showed exemplary work within the School of Science. So each of the different schools, the School of Hotel and Catering, again, each one, some of the lecturers had never actually delivered online, and they were, by that time, I suppose the Christmas time, they had become experts for sharing practice and really engaging with the resources. So, and a lot of that was the result of the Digital Champion program. So again, I just we'll be sharing slides with you later if you want to have a read through the testimonials and what being a digital champion meant to our colleagues who took on that role. So just to what type of practice did they employ, I suppose, and how did they share? So again, just some of the examples, and again, there were so many different examples from each different champion sort of focused on different areas depending on their topic. Each site, it was a CUA champions program. So we had our colleagues in Letterkenny and Sligo and Galway. Some were using different technologies and some had access to different technologies. But just to run through here, I have a slide here, just run through in general, some of the really innovative practice to help improve the student experience and to engage the students more in their online and blended environment. So we had extensive use of H5P integration within the videos for increased learning opportunities and enhanced engagement. So a lot, and rather than just putting up a video, a lot of our digital champions showcased the H5P integration, and also they use Microsoft Forms as well for that. So allowed the students to engage. You could measure their learning as you were going along, asking them quizzes, and that was used quite extensively. Creation of podcasts, so new ways of learning. So the students loved the new ways of learning online. It changed it for them a little bit. Flipgrid, student engagement. Again, use of Teams as a learning community between the digital champions and also for the students themselves. A lot of the champions also, they used digital badges. And again, that was used, and it was, I suppose, led by one or two digital champions. And a lot of our colleagues started to use badges to encourage engagement, to allow them to reach, I suppose, learning outcomes more easily. To keep them engaged, really, and they were very, very good as an engagement tool for our students. And I personally used them myself, and I found the students love them. Another tool that a lot of our champions used was the OneNote, and this proved very useful for teaching computing and maths. And the notebook continues. And again, as part of all of this was the assessment engagement tool. It wasn't just the tools; it was about improving your assessment. Again, we couldn't have on-site exams, so there was a whole change in assessment strategy, and part of that was it wasn't just the tools, it was the assessment strategy that had to change also, which Carina had done a lot of documentation and sessions on that also. Some more examples: Twitter for class engagement, using tools like Menti, Padlet, and again, I've used these quite extensively myself, and again, I found that my feedback from my students, and again, as a leader of one of the digital champions, I would, I suppose, showcase some good practice to the digital champions also. But my feedback from my students was they really enjoyed the live class engagement. They found all of the tools. So really, the students themselves, our learners, reiterate that what we were doing was all very positive, and they were all very happy at the end of a very difficult year for them all. Also, part of the digital champion program was to use some formal tools like the Oscar scorecard for best practice. So again, we were using guidance and best practice from, and as Carina said, SUNY was an excellent influencer. They gave us so many different resources, and they started us on our journey and provided great guidance along the way. So we're very thankful to them for that, and to have the relationship, which is fantastic for us. So, yeah. So
am I right? Yeah. The next one.
Perfect. Yes. I mentioned some of these, so just to show the diversity of the different types of new technology that were used. So I just showed in a podcast, a culinary arts podcast, from one of our wonderful chefs. Another podcast then from blockchain, a completely different topic, but a series of blockchain podcasts from Trevor, one of our really good digital champions, using of badges. So Wayne in engineering was our digital champion. Really, he led the digital champion. I suppose he taught everybody how to set them up. And yes, he was really, really good. So he I suppose championed those, and a lot of our colleagues started to use them, so they were very useful. Use of Menti and Flipgrid, again, some examples in business. Lucy in business used them quite extensively. So I suppose I'm just as part of the end of one of the modules, they had to showcase some of their work. So that's where we just took some of these ideas to share with you, so that you could see on the ground how the digital champions really, how they've used new tools and how they've changed the whole, I suppose, face of digital teaching. Just the next one, Carina.
Okay.
Thank you. So again, some more innovative feedback methods. So again, we talked about how to improve the student feedback. So different written and verbal feedback. So more different tools that we use. So again, some of them may be available to those watching the webinar, and some may not. But just some examples of using voice for feedback instead of typing it all out. Some ways of using different types of tools. So that was just part of what we all shared, and sharing of practice really was what was very beneficial. So, and is there the next one, Carina? Sorry. Yes. So again, the whole redesign. So we talked about the Oscar scorecard, and again, this is an example of how Marilla, she changed her whole module, just using a redesign of the module using H5P. And according to the Oscar scorecard. So the Oscar scorecard, we're just going to share it. So again, we developed and we changed this to allow our colleagues to give such good practice. So again, some of you here may be aware of the Oscar scorecard and some may not. So what we have is we have printed out here on the slide. And again, what it does, it allows you to look at your module and ensure that you're ticking all the boxes. And each of our champions, they share this with their colleagues, and basically it was really supporting best practice in digital teaching and learning, and it was a great tool to support that.
Yeah, and it was wonderful, Annette, how we got some early adapters to pilot and use this before we kind of mainstreamed it in GMIT. So we were very lucky that we got a couple of heads of departments on board and a couple of module leaders who kind of road tested this for us and came back with some really good ideas on perhaps how we might amend some of the questions that were coming through from the original Oscar scorecard provided with SUNY. So I think it was important to localize it, and we were happy with that. And we gave it a name of the module design review rubric, and you'll see all the links that have been embedded in this Excel tool. Thanks to our learning technologist, Orla Skehel. The links go back into the SUNY site to explain further, which is nice. But it becomes, I know we can't demonstrate it live here, but when you click on some of the actions, it kind of goes red, amber, or green. So at least as our colleagues, or we know how we're doing in relation to the design of our module and how it's going to look on the VLE. So our champions found that really useful to help with their direction, where they were going with their assessment. So so that's been really useful. Now that's the other side of it. So then when we look a bit more into the accredited and the self-directed learning pathways that have been available on DigitalEd, which our champions have engaged with, it inspired us to develop a professional services digital champion badge and pathway. And we're delighted that we have two pathways, and the professional services pathway will launch now in the autumn, and it will really kick off. We've had a pilot group that's engaged with it across the CUA, but we're hoping for wider engagement. And we hope everybody's inspired by our digital academic champions as well. So we've two pathways. Again, you'll be able to go in and look at these, and you can follow them and see, if you want to do them. Anyone in the OLC suite, you're very welcome to go in. You access it through DigitalEd.ie. And as we said, the academic pathway is for our lecturers, and then we have the professional services community in higher ed that's taking that pathway. So the academic pathway, we tell a story about the discovery tool. We also tell people, if you're taking the accredited route, we encourage you to do our cert in technology enhanced learning as a first off if you're new, and then you would do our digital teaching and learning program that Annette talked about, that our champions undertook. And then we tell everybody about Oscar, and we point people to that, and we say that's important. So I think these little maps that we've created to help navigate the journey have been very useful. We talk about the resources and webinars available as well to back that up. When you go into CPT Learn Online or DigitalEd.ie, which I suppose is a gateway in, you'll see we have 3 buttons that are essential learning in the academic pathway. So our champions would have done this as a minimum, these 3. But actually, when they did the Level 9 programme, they undertook a lot more than this, when they did their assessments with Annette. So, but we've laid these 3 essential learning because we wanted to make sure that other colleagues that perhaps were not interested in getting the accredited route or the accredited award, that they could feel they could go in here in their own time and space and do the courses. So we were delighted that we worked with SUNY on digital teaching and learning. It's a nice little 3-set module, again inspired by SUNY. We have Microsoft Education badges, and Annette worked very closely with Stephen Howell on that package and how we were going to embed them within our learning platform. And then we worked very closely with a lady called Orla Farrell in DCU, who was leading the Open Teach project. Another little essential course, very, very relevant to higher education in Ireland, and they look at different personas. So again, freely available, open access, available sitting on the DigitalEd platform. So they have been really useful for our champion network. And then, as I said, this is the self-directed route. You'll see it's similar, but, you know, to as I've just shown, but you don't get the accredits as such, you know, but absolutely you can engage and get badges and recognition in that form. And I did mention that infographic already. So moving on then, and just so you're aware, you know, the academic Digital Champion team have inspired this whole professional services pathway, and we're delighted. Jessica Duffy, who works with us in teaching and learning, and Orla Skehel, who's one of our learning technologists, they've put a lot of work into the background in this. And I know Annette Cosgrove and Wayne Gibbons has also been helping in the background on the badge proposal, and we're delighted we're able to launch it in the autumn. So we're hoping that'll have an impact, and we'll have a professional services champion team that we'll be talking about maybe at OLC next year, who knows. And then, you know, just if we take a little closer look at the learning materials for the professional services, we've brought in the discovery tool. We've brought in kind of open learning options that, you know, little courses that they do in-house or internally on our systems. We've also had the opportunity to have Coursera courses for a short time available as well, the Microsoft badges all aboard. So all of these things, they're collecting learning evidence, and that's all building towards claiming that badge of recognition. And okay, so we're moving on to the final stage of our talk now, and just to share the final piece about the resources that have been curated and developed from the team and populated on the DigitalEd platform. So we decided to set up a space for resources that were categorizing the latest and greatest in teaching and learning articles that came through from journals and publications over the last year under assessment as well and student engagement. So that's been useful. And from a lecturing perspective and leading out on programs in TEL and digital teaching and learning, which Annette does, she's able to point colleagues to these journals and key articles to help with their own literature review and analysis of what works and the different models that can be considered for online teaching design and that. So you'll see a little snapshot here of the different categories, and you click on it and it'll bring you right into that resource, if it's a PDF or if it's a document, or it might bring you directly into the journal article. So we're always working on that and fine-tuning it, and happy to take any feedback on it. You know, by all means, do email us, tlo@gmit.ie, if you have any feedback on the platform and how the resources are being curated and categorized. And then finally, looking at, this has been a fantastic peer evaluation process where we kind of crowdsourced and looked at all the digital tools that were out there. And God, it was interesting when we first started back in 2019. And I remember it was a summer project for Jessica on the team, who's one of our project coordinators. And she identified 1,400 digital tools that people were using across the 8 campuses in the CUA. And we said, hang on a minute, we need to scale this back and see which ones were the most popular and which ones, you know, we wanted some sort of a kind of a peer evaluation process. And Orla Skehel, one of our learning technologists, began to look at kind of a scorecard and a rubric on how we'd rate these tools so that we could actually come up with maybe 30 that we could host and present within our DigitalEd platform and share, you know, what was good about it, what was not so good about it, or how it would work in your teaching practice and student engagement. So we were delighted with this. And by all means, again, it's open, available. You can go in, You click on any of them. I know I can't click here now, but if you click on it, you'll see a little rubric's been completed, tell you about the functionality, everything you need to know. It's just a cool peer review tool. And if you have a tool or idea you'd like to submit to the platform, there's a facility to do that as well. So we'd love to hear from you. So what we did was we got all our champions to review these tools as well, and we got them to attach their name to some of them. And we found that really powerful because colleagues will use or engage something through word of mouth, but equally they will use it if they saw on a platform like this, oh, Annette Cosgrove has reviewed and road tested this tool for us. So therefore it'll work, you know, wasn't it? Didn't we find that brilliant, Annette?
Yes, yeah, it was. And yeah, it was a great resource, and really, even for people like outside of the organisation, it's a great to look at what are people using, what are they using it for, and you know, did they like it or did they not? So we found this great additional resource really, and it was one that I suppose that we started with, as Carina said, and it evolved and grew, and we're continuously updating the site and keeping it up to date. You know, so we have probably 10 more new ones to add to it after.
And we may have to delete some as well. You know, some might be out of date. They mightn't be, you know, particularly in light of COVID, we've seen some tools that have come to the forefront, you know, like Menti and Padlet, and there's others like OneNote, and a lot of our Microsoft tools have been big leaders over the last year. But anyways, what we did also is we thought this was useful. We began to categorize them. And again, our learning technologist, Orla Scahill, began to group them against a framework that was worked on a number of years ago on another national teaching and learning project called All Aboard. But we really liked this framework. And this, you'll see it's a bit of a metro map there. And we decided, well, let's categorize these tools that we've peer reviewed and map them against this categorization framework, you know, and it's called All Aboard, kind of digital All Aboard ideas. So again, we need to review this and look and see, has anything changed on this? But this has been a really good aid for the discussion with colleagues, and when they're in training initiatives and they begin to see, oh, is that how I'd use it? Oh, it's better for collaboration, or it'll work better for well-being initiatives, or so forth, you know. So we found that really useful. And then finally, coming back into finishing up now and looking back at the DigitalEd platform, and we welcome you to go in, browse, view it. Any feedback you have, we'd love to hear from you. And or if you've an opportunity to collaborate with us here in Ireland, in the west of Ireland, we'd love to hear from you. Maybe there's a comparative study we could benchmark with each other and see, you know, what kind of a knowledge platform you have in your university in the United States, and looking at what we have in Ireland. We'd love to hear from you. So I'm finishing up with this lovely illustration again, which tells the journey and the story and where we are. We're on this road. I think we're going to have to add another page in it of the graphics. So because this road is not ending, it's beginning to move on. So we'll have to look at that. A couple of little selected articles that are just linked to our discussion today. You're very welcome to go in and get a little bit further reading. Certainly these case studies, there's a case study there Annette and I worked on as part of an educational awards submission this year for a national education awards. And we were delighted that we were placed second as the best educational technology initiative in Ireland in higher education. So you'll see a little bit more about that and what we proposed in that case study for that award. And then there's other little articles there, an international or a national journal in Ireland called AISH. And more recently, we were invited to tell a little bit about the story of digital ed, and you'll see that in the University World News, or Education Technology Insights, which is available in Europe. Okay, and that's it, I think, Annette. And now really, we'd love to have been there in person. We had great plans to be in Washington and to be with everyone and collaborating and learning from so many people. And unfortunately, nobody's allowed to fly yet from Ireland. So, but next year, we hope we'll be somewhere with the OLC team. And yes. Any other final words, Annette?
No, just to say thanks for the opportunity. And if anyone would like to get in touch with either of us, our emails are there. And also, if you want to have a look at the site, the link is there. And we really look forward to any feedback. We're continuously changing it. and updating it. And that's, you know, each year that's what we looked from experts like yourselves or whoever's tuning into this seminar. So thank you very much, and thanks Carina as well.
Thanks, Annette. And you'll see our Twitter accounts are there as well. Please do follow us and let us know you saw this talk. Wouldn't that be great? We'd know, because we don't know who will see it, but we hope lots of people will see it. So thanks very much. I'm going to stop the recording.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks a million. Thank you for tuning in.